Russia said goodbye to the deputy commander of its Black Sea fleet in annexed Crimea, and hundreds of mourners gathered to pay their respects to the captain Andrei Pali in a military funeral in Sevastopol. He was killed fighting in the eastern Ukrainian port city of Mariupol, now one of several high-ranking officials to die in Russia's war on Ukraine. Russia has sustained heavy losses since the start of its invasion of Ukraine last month. A Russian newspaper claimed that some 9,861 army personnel have been killed, though promptly removed that figure, claiming it had been hacked. NATO estimates that the Russian death toll could be as high as 15,000. Soviet troops lost a similar number in Afghanistan over the course of an entire decade. The Kremlin, meanwhile, has not updated its casualties, but at the beginning of March claimed to have lost just under 500 fighters.
Well, Joe Biden has a packed schedule in Brussels tomorrow. He'll attend an extraordinary NATO summit, as well as meetings of the European Council and the G7. This is an opportunity for all of those leaders to come together face to face, roughly a month since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began. They're expected to announce further sanctions against Moscow and also to tighten up some of the existing ones. They'll also discuss providing further military and humanitarian support to Ukraine. But the message that Joe Biden really wants to send in attending these meetings in person is that the West remains united in the face of Russia's aggression, that the coordinated response that we've seen from Western allies so far will continue, even as pressures begin to emerge. There has been disagreement, for example, between the United States and Poland on how to get Polish fighter jets into Ukraine.
Just hours after it was singled out by the Ukrainian President Zelensky in his address to French Parliament, Renault said that it was suspending all manufacturing in Russia until further notice. It already had been forced to temporarily halt activity at its Moscow factory because of a shortage of parts. But after the Ukrainian leader called for a boycott of the brand, Renault's board of directors appeared to bow to pressure this Wednesday evening. It said it was also considering how to handle its two-thirds stake in Russian car maker Avtovaz. Renault is the Western car maker most exposed to the Russian market. Russia accounts for about 8% of its overall earnings, and Renault employs some 45,000 local staff there. The French government is Renault's biggest shareholder, and the brand's continued presence in Russia had sparked controversy, especially as rivals like Volkswagen and Volvo halted all business, including exports, earlier in the crisis.
Вот такая хуйня. Ох, ебать. Прям на камеру.
Вот там и троих отдается.
After almost a year of waiting, it seems these girls will have to wait even longer. The Taliban has ordered the closure of middle and high schools for girls in Afghanistan, just hours after they were reopened. Students were told to close their books. They packed their belongings and left their classroom in tears. A Taliban spokesman subsequently confirmed the decision without giving more information. Girls returning to schools have been a key stumbling block in negotiations over restarting aid flows to Afghanistan after the Taliban retook Kabul last year. Much of the country is facing severe food shortages and economic collapse. Now, for these girls, and education also remains out of reach.
She fled the Nazis as a child and rose to become one of the most powerful women in the history of the US government. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84.
Madeleine Albright made history when in 1997 she became the first woman to serve as U.S. Secretary of State.
Discharge the duties of the office.
Discharge the duties of the office.
On which I am about to enter.
On which I am about to enter.
Albright wielded her power in direct and controversial ways, enforcing the UN economic embargo against Iraq. Madeleine Korbel was born in the former Czechoslovakia in 1937, the daughter of a diplomat. The Korbel family fled to the U.S. after communists took power in Prague in 1947. After university, Korbel married Joseph Albright and raised a family. At age 39, she completed her PhD and launched her foreign policy career.
Well, the event South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced in a text message to reporters at around 2:40 p.m. that North Korea fired a projectile toward the EC. The military said it appears to be a long-range ballistic missile launched at a steep angle. This means that it's likely that the missile is the North's new ICBM Hwasong-17 that the regime appears to have been testing recently. But the military has not yet given further information on the specific details, including how far or how fast it flew. The Japanese government also reported the launch, saying that it could be a ballistic missile. Japan's Coast Guard said it landed at 3:44 p.m. inside Japan's exclusive economic zone, 170 kilometers west of Aomori Prefecture in northern Japan.
Wikileaks founder Julian Assange married his fiancée Stella Morris on Wednesday in London's Belmarsh Prison. The wedding took place during visiting hours at the high-security jail, with only a handful of guests present. Morris wore a dress by Vivienne Westwood, who has campaigned for Assange's release. After the ceremony, she walked through a crowd of well-wishers who had gathered outside the jail. She then cut her wedding cake and made a short speech, saying how much she wished her new husband could be by her side. Assange had to remain in Belmarsh, where he's fighting extradition to the US. He is wanted on charges related to WikiLeaks' release of vast troves of confidential US military records and diplomatic cables more than a decade ago.